Hello, humans. We are the Elephant Room. This is our podcast. How are the lads?
Fantastic. Brilliant. Cannot wait for this.
Now that we're all enthused and in no way robotic, this week, let's chat about electronic music. Let's get rid of our human emotions. The reason I feel like we should talk about electronic music is because, when was it? Maybe 2 weeks ago, Daft Punk broke up or decided they weren't going to make music anymore. It was celebrated across the internet. You know, they were celebrated for the hell of a career they've had since like 93, 97, I suppose, if you talk about when they released their first album, Homework. But I think what made me kind of sad about it was, if you're ever looking back on like your parents or something like that and the music that was their generation, it would be like 60s music or 70s music or new wave music, and then people from the 90s had Britpop and grunge and different things like that. Us lads now, us millennials who are like touching our 30s and stuff, even though Daft Punk were around during the 90s and early 90s, I feel like Daft Punk is our generation. That was like the music that was like new for our generation. That sort of it, like we had the White Stripes and different things like that but they were like a retro act. They were like a throwback of garage or something that was 60s and 70s, where Daft Punk were like the pioneers of new music. I think that'll be like time stamped, because as soon as I heard they were breaking up, I was like, oh wow, that was like, when I really think back on my relationship with Daft Punk, that was like, I remember Daft Punk as like where everyone agreed in a nightclub. You know, you could put a Daft Punk song on in a nightclub and everyone's happy. It's like metalheads, guys who were into guitar music, guys who were into rap, guys who were into just straight up Tiesto dance music. Everyone was pretty happy with Daft Punk being on. So that's why I got a bit sad when I heard that they were breaking up, and why I think we should do a full episode just on electronic music. Yeah, we tried to give a history of recorded music. And realistically, all recorded music is electronic music if you really think about it, apart from the back cylinder. It would be utterly foolish of us to try fit the full history of electronic music into this 40-50 minutes that we're going to do, because there's just way too much to it. But we'll try give like a brief outline of the stuff that interests us and give you a few little tidbits. But yeah, to start with Daft Punk, as I said, for me, that's the music of our generation, because they were the people who brought what was in the 90s was like techno and rave and house and all these things like that. And obviously you had the Prodigy and different people like that during the 90s who were like big beat. Obviously in England was fucking huge, like the Chemical Brothers and Portishead then with like trip hop and all this sort of stuff. But I always found with like the Prodigy, it was like big beat stuff, but it was the voice, it was a human voice on top of it singing it, so it wasn't too different to like Nirvana. It was just kind of bigger sounds behind the voice, and it still had like the pop punk sort of structure to it and the verse and chorus and stuff like that. But it always felt like it was technology assisting humans. But Daft Punk were the first time that it felt like humans assisting technology. That obviously their persona was that they were robots, and that's really what it felt like it was. Like Keith Flint was the face of the Prodigy, and he was a human. But like bands like Air and Royscope and Daft Punk, they came from like the true meaning of what techno and rave was. It was faceless. It was just about music, and you didn't really care about the person who was behind it, like Aphex Twin and stuff like that. These were the mysterious people that were like anti-pop stars. You just cared about the music. When you went to a rave, you would dance with your back to the DJ. You know, you weren't standing there looking at the performer. The performer was the same as you. You were both just playing music, listening to music, dancing to music, enjoying music. So it was faceless. It was just basically about music. And I think bands like Daft Punk brought that rave culture, house music, to pop music. And they made everybody into it. And now look at fucking EDM. It's by far the biggest type of music on earth. Like the biggest concerts on earth are like Tomorrowland, Coachella. What Daft Punk did was pretty special. And as I said, they were that kind of meeting point of all types of people, everyone agreeing that Daft Punk were the shit whenever they came on in a nightclub or on the radio.
It's funny that you're saying that. And on the last episode, we were talking about legitimacy in music. We were talking about the persona. In this now, it's the opposite. It's just taking that away because that shouldn't matter. What matters is the music. So that's a really interesting kind of counterpoint to what we were talking about last week.
Yeah, I think what we spoke about last week, because most music comes out of a culture, like, you know, hillbilly music or folk music or rock music and stuff like that. It comes from an area where the people who were playing it looked like that. They were of that social status. They were genuinely from the countryside or genuinely from a place. They were traditional or whatever. So people always want you to be that if you're going to try play that. And same with like rap music. They want you to be from like a rough area in They want you to be from Compton, basically. They don't take you seriously unless you're from Compton.
Yeah.
The great thing about electronic music is it doesn't sound like it's played by humans. You know, it sounds like it's programmed. It is sampled and stuff like that. So it's hard to go, you're supposed to look a certain way if you're playing it. And that is the crazy thing. When you see electronic musicians, you kind of go, oh, that's him. Okay. You know, you
Yeah.
don't really have any opinion. You're just like, oh, it's not like he was supposed to look like this. Like you see an electronic musician and they have like long hair and they look like a hippie or something. You're just like, oh, okay. Didn't think they'd look like that. And then it's like, I don't know what they'd look like, to be quite honest. That music doesn't really garner a style of person to be making it. And that's what's great about it. And like the reason like Daft Punk decided to start wearing the mask was anonymity, obviously, just to not have to deal with fame and stuff like that, because they knew it was coming after first album and it just kind of blew up for them with homework. But also they said like they were getting photographed and they looked like children. They were like baby faced and they were just like, this doesn't really suit the music. You know, the fact that we were going to be on the cover of magazines and we're like clean shaven, baby faced, but yet we have this really aggressive, grisly music. It would just suit it better if we weren't humans, because people don't think it's humans making these noises anyway. So let's just be robots. They didn't start it. Kraftwerk started it. Kraftwerk were, you know, the robots, but Daft Punk really brought it from the underground to everyday pop and EDM, which is now the biggest music on earth. I also I found out a few facts about them. Their name, Daft Punk. They were in a band called Darling in the early 90s, which were just kind of My Bloody Valentine, almost kind of just drudge kind of punk. They released a compilation EP with a few other bands on the label they were on at the time. And Melody Maker, they reviewed them as Daft Punky crap. They kind of panicked then when they got signed to Soma Records in Scotland because they didn't actually have a name. So they're just like, it just stuck with them. Because it was that review that made them go, oh shit, yeah, we actually are just playing kind of Daft Punky crap, aren't we? How can we change this? And then they started going to raves and underground places in Paris and the Pompidou and all these different areas. Yeah, that review kind of hurt them in terms of we need to start doing something very different. And that's when they started messing around with electronic music and programmed drums and everything. Yeah.
Just highlights the importance of honest reviews, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You do need to be told the truth. There's no point everyone that's telling each other they're great, because then nothing ever gets done. There's also the biggest rumor, I think, always banging around, I remember, was that one of the lads from Daft Punk has gone deaf and now they can't play music anymore. So it turns out Thomas Bangalter, one half of Daft Punk, the other guy is Guy Manuel de Homem Christo. Bangalter he was diagnosed with tinnitus in 2001, and in 2002 said that he wasn't going to play live anymore because he didn't want to do any further damage to his ear. But after taking a lot of time away from live music and DJing and stuff like that his tinnitus actually fixed itself, which is a very rare occasion with tinnitus. Apparently, yeah, he's back to full health. Wear earplugs, people. And then to bring back my recurring motif, another famous person who has tinnitus is Eric Clapton.
Oh, good God.
I feel like I have tinnitus whenever he's playing. But yeah, just talking about everything Daft Punk did, yeah, they were just innovators in every regard of their art. Obviously, they topped it off in 2013, 2014 when they came back with Random Access Memory, working with Pharrell and getting the #1 and winning the Grammy. And I thought it was a bit naff and everything, the Grammy appearance. I really do think that was like them coming back to just be like, because EDM blew up after they played Coachella that time with the pyramid and full of LEDs and stuff like that. It really showed everybody what you can do for a live performance of electronic music. And then after that comes like deadmau5 and people like Skrillex and everything. But yeah, when they came back in like 2014, that was just like kind of fuck the lot of E, we're Daft Punk. Yeah, I would say that they're like the pinnacle of EDM anyway. So to start our history and go back to the beginning of EDM or just electronic music in general, the furthest back I could find someone who's considered the godfather of electronic music is another French guy, Edgard Varese, who was a Parisian composer in the late 1800s, early 20th century. What was really interesting about Varese was that he was obsessed with music, but his dad just wanted him to be an academic like him. So he like forced him to do science, physics, and maths when he went to college. And that kind of like stuck with him, this whole like mathematics side of thinking about music. He classed his own music as organized sound. And he has a really good quote that was, "To stubbornly conditioned ears, anything new in music has always been considered noise." And basically, he believed that the acoustic instruments that you traditionally composed on, like orchestral musics, woodwind, brass, percussion, all these things, that they were very limited. That he believed that like that was just 12-tone equal temperament or microtonal and stuff like that. That he believed that everything was music. A bit like John Cage, to counteract John Cage, that he believed that it should still be structured and stuff like that, but he believed that it could be anything on the scale of stuff that was auditory. And he had all these kind of wild ideas of having something that went far lower than the register of the lowest bass instrument and far higher than anything of the highest woodwind or string instrument. And he basically found that there was like limits to all these acoustic mechanical instruments that they were using at the end of the 1800s. And he was very much so in favor of using electronic music and all these new devices that they were coming up with were recorded music, and we should start using electronic resources to create new instruments. So he was like obsessed with the theremin when Leon Theremin created that. And actually one of his compositions was composed for 2 theremins, which he never actually got to play because there wasn't 2 people who were good enough at the theremin to play with each other.
That's
And,
gas.
but yeah, one of his most famous piece was a piece called Ionization, which was made for 13 percussionists. And the main thing that he put emphasis on was rhythm and timbre rather than harmony and melody. That's basically the foundation of like electronic techno music, is rhythm and timbre and repetition. Things that weren't pitched, basically, which, that carried through all the way up to Daft Punk, of just like repetitive rhythms and timbres and atmospheres. One very interesting thing about Varese and his connection maybe to yourself, Doreen, Frank Zappa was obsessed with him. Absolutely obsessed with him. And as a birthday present for his 15th birthday, his mother allowed him to call his house in New York. And when a 15-year-old Frank Zappa called Edgard Varese was actually in Brussels at the time.
Oh Jesus!
Oh no!
And he spoke to his wife, and his wife anyway took note of it. Varese then wrote him a letter which Zappa framed and put in his studio, and every time he recorded, that letter was framed in a studio that he was recording in.
That is brilliant.
And the last project that Zappa was actually working on was an album of covers or like recompositions of Vares's work, which he never actually got to finish, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a brilliant connection.
It's mad.
Excellent.
What he shared anyway, Zappa and Varese, was this want to basically create sounds that couldn't be created by traditional instruments and basically just traditional methods, and to use innovation to create new music. And that was his whole thing, and that's why he's considered the godfather of organized noise and electronic music, basically his concepts were the foundation of what would become music made by robots, basically.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you're saying that those ideas that Edgar Varese was having at the time, and like this is the start of what we would call electroacoustic music. So this is kind of the when composers started moving away from using real instruments and started adding in electronics to get away from the norm. So every kind of movement in music is a reaction to the movement that came before it. So you had the Romantic era, which was focused on melody and harmony, and that was kind of the strict rules that they were confined to. And then you had the Futurist movement, which is a reaction to that in 1910, going on from there. And the Italian futurist composer Luigi Russolo has said that he felt the medium of the orchestra was too confining. So the importance of futurist music was that they rejected tradition and introduced experimental sounds. So then when we come to the formative era of electroacoustic music during the 1940s and 50s, this is when the medium for creating music was electronic tape. The functional kind of characteristics of that technology shaped and influenced the creativity of the composers. So now we're at a time in music where it wasn't enough to be a good composer, but craftsmanship was of equal importance as musical ability. So when it came to experimenting with sounds and the manipulation of sound, it wasn't good enough that you could still write and play music and be a great musician. You had to be good at actually putting it together. So the kind of two schools of thought that were around at that time were you had the German WDR studio, and they had more of a bottom-up style of generating sound, and that's using like oscillators and voltage controlled synthesizers and stuff like that. But you also had the French RTF studio and school of thought, where it was musique concrète was the name they had for it. It was the approach of getting found sound, so going out and recording to tape everyday sounds in your environment, taking it back to the studio on the electronic tape and literally getting a razor blade and chopping things up and putting it back together. I always think it's funny, and maybe it's something that people have forgotten about today, but that's why we have that technique and that process of doing things is the reason why on computers now we have cut, copy, and paste. I suppose when you look at that and how it went from the rejection of the tradition into something more experimental, that's the seed for this kind of thought that we can start using technology to move things forward. You can see there that the confines of technology really shaped the way you could create electronic music. Now, obviously, in the modern digital age, that's something that's completely overlooked because the software that we have is so easily accessible, and any musician with varying processes and styles are really easily catered for. But you can see the idea it's cropping up, from the early stages of electroacoustic music and then eventually into electronic music, where it's purely based on the technology and not any kind of acoustic instrument or influence.
Yeah, I find it kind of funny how electronic music started out way above the average musician. Basically, these like laboratory scientists almost are the best composers on earth. And I kind of stayed there for a while with like producers and engineers and stuff. And now it's just like the dumbest people on earth that are like
Yeah.
using like the ready-made software to make it. So it completely did like, a 180. Yeah, just
Well, that's the funny thing. How many times have you heard people complaining, like music purists, people that only listen to bands, say, why would I go listen to that DJ? All he's doing is press and play on his laptop and then standing back and letting it do all the work. Well, what's funny about when you're looking back to the 1940s and 50s, where those two schools of thought were coming from two different studios, the common link between the two of them was that it was music that was recorded and performed through loudspeakers without any human performer, when they were eventually showcasing their pieces of music that they've been working on, it was just them pressing play on the loudspeaker and people watching. So it's always been part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's very interesting there, Shane, when you're on about the start, like of electroacoustic music. The two kind of general school of thoughts are running there in the 40s and 50s, the French and German, and that there was emphasis put on, the importance of your actual compositions and the craft. Well, there was a guy that now I know we are aware of him, but I think an awful lot of people wouldn't be, is the American composer and phenomenal inventor, Raymond Scott. When you think of the kind of experimental contemporary electronic music, when you look at the foundations, a lot of people instantly think of, Dr. Robert Moog, the Moog modular, the Moog synthesizer, but a lot of people don't realize that Raymond Scott was the massive influence behind Robert Moog, that Moog actually, he was essentially nearly like an apprentice to Raymond Scott for quite some time in the 50s. But just to kind of roll back on Scott's kind of background, it was an interesting one. He kind of led a double life for an awful lot of time. Now, when I say double life, I mean his musical career. He was an incredibly accomplished jazz musician, and a band leader of the kind of swing era of jazz, in the 30s and 40s. And he's actually one of his most famous compositions, which it probably gets more recognition over his electronic stuff, is Powerhouse. Did you ever hear that piece, Powerhouse?
No.
Well, Powerhouse, okay. I'm 100% sure we've all heard it, right, in various guises. So, Looney Tunes. Not the theme tune, but the various, there's little bits, in episodes and stuff. So the Warner Bros. Director of music, Carl Stalling, in the 1930s, he came across the Raymond Scott Quintet, which was Raymond Scott's big kind of jazz ensemble of actual 6 people. Now it was a sextet, but he called it quintet. But anyway, we won't get into that. This famous piece, anyway, what would be famous, Powerhouse. Carl Stalling, basically, it's the first time I ever heard of this, lads, and you probably know of it, that he musically quoted Powerhouse. Did you ever hear of that?
Never heard of that.
Frank?
In like a copyright sense?
Yeah.
In what way? So he recreated it with his own sounds?
Yeah, like he basically expanded it into more of a kind of orchestral piece, but still kind of kept that big band thing.
Yeah.
And he never, he basically, it's like he quoted various sections of it, maybe a couple of bars here or there. Maybe he took the bridge, but he never referenced the entire song,
Yeah. Is that legally binding?
This is the thing, it's, I know Raymond Scott, he really didn't like the whole association with the cartoons. He despised it. He only spoke about it once in an interview in the 80s, and that was it. He never spoke about it again. But anyway, it was musically quoted over 140 times in the span of Looney Tunes.
Wow.
And so we've all heard it. But anyway, just back to the double life of Raymond Scott. So he basically had this fantastic early career as a jazz musician and band leader, which was brilliant. But come the 40s, he got quite discontented with jazz and swing in particular. He thought it was quite stale, and it was getting into a rut. Basically, like Edgard Varus, he saw electronic music as this kind of unbelievable way forward. That you could produce these sounds that traditional conventional instruments just can't. And the thing with Raymond Scott was that he was an absolutely brilliant inventor as well. He had a fantastic grasp of circuitry and then the traditional side of the instrumentation and all that. So he kind of combined these two together. And in 1946, he started the Manhattan Research Incorporated company. And this was the start of Raymond Scott's kind of venture into electronic music. You kind of see, again, he has this parallel life of throughout the 50s. He becomes host and conductor of Your Hit Parade. So it originally started in radio and then it came on to TV. And again, stuck in the kind of conventional jazz. But meanwhile, he had this second life of making these fantastic electronic compositions and working on, again, this is kind of early 50s, working on his Clavivox. So a Clavivox is nearly the direct precursor to the Moog modular, without the modular, but the kind of basic setup of the keys and the kind of general pitches and sounds got. It's very similar to Clavivox. And Moog himself says that, But anyway, this is where Robert Moog comes in. Kind of come into the mid-50s now. Scott contacts Moog to come and try and build the circuitry of a theremin. So again, very interesting parallels to Edgar Varus, Frank, that Scott, again, was obsessed with the theremin and the sound of a theremin, but he kind of wanted to bring it into a more controlled environment because obviously, the nature of the theremin, like it's, he wanted to bring it into like a key type format, with keys. So this is what the Clavivox was going to be. And he got Robert Moog and his father. Moog's father was a very accomplished electrical engineer at the time. So he got the two of them to kind of isolate the underlying circuitry of the theremin. And then Scott himself would use that to eventually build his Clavivox. But the thing with Scott, which was quite interesting, was he was an incredibly paranoid individual. Like he basically, all his instruments, all the plethora of instruments that he created, and created an unbelievable amount. Like the amount of US patents he has is unbelievable, but he never once produced his instruments for like a production line for commercial success, for musicians and composers to use them. They were just one-off things for himself, which was quite bizarre. But that's what Moog said, that like, and obviously Moog himself, very accomplished engineer, but he was also quite the astute businessman. Obviously, unfortunately, he saw the failings of Scott, and he kind of knew himself a decade later, right, I'm not going to do that, you know what I mean? Which was interesting. But anyway, so when you kind of roll on with the Clavivox, and then like directly after that, he invented like the Videola, which was used as a kind of film and soundtrack synchronization device, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he makes great strides as well in just when you were saying about Shane, the electronic tape, the emergence of tape.
Yeah.
That Raymond Scott, actually, he was one of the, and I didn't realize this at all until I started researching. He was one of the early pioneers of actual storage on tape. So like other than music, like you could actually store, like the very early like form of word processing and stuff,
Mad, that's amazing.
It's unbelievable. Like, and he registered all these things as US patents, and throughout then like his own career, and after he died in the 90s, like he still had companies using his patents. Like he had Sony, IBM, like it's unbelievable. But anyway, so this guy was incredibly talented inventor, but also had the skill as a composer, so you had these two kind of big schools coming together, like, so it was amazing. But this was, when you roll into the 60s, this was when Scott finally departs, like he says goodbye to jazz completely. And he just goes 100% electronic, And this was where he started to kind of go into like the commercially successful kind of jingles and stuff he used to do for, tons of ads. So you had likes of IBM, you had Bendix, the Tomorrow People. Get them check out the video. And you even had likes of I think it was like Gillette, Nescafe. Oh, like literally, you had a massive portfolio, and they just kept on coming. So you create these mad kind of futuristic sounds, and again, all the companies like, yeah, this is it. This is the cutting edge. This is what we want. It sounds like the future, Yeah. And an interesting fact here as well is that during this whole kind of collaboration with companies on getting jingles out, he actually collaborates with very young Jim Henson of the Muppets fame. They both create an ad for IBM, and it's called the Paperwork Explosion. Yeah, and this is basically where you had the traditional office in the 60s where there's tons of paperwork, typewriters going crazy and all that, and people not getting top of their paperwork. And IBM was like, no, the future is, their machine was like the MTST, it was very old kind of, well, at the time, cutting edge word processor, Again, they wanted this futuristic, cutting edge kind of soundscape, and they got Raymond Scott for this, So he kind of stuck at this whole commercial jingles for quite some time. I think it was nearly a period of 5-6 years that he did this. And, you can kind of see this period as the beginnings of what we know as electronic music. I think was firmly rooted in this kind of commercial thing where companies wanted the sound of the future, I think a lot can be owed to that. this was then when you move on then in his career, this is where it kind of gets a bit strange. In 1970, he's approached by Motown to become a principal researcher in electronic music for Motown, which is really, really strange. And I think while he was there, he invented, like, I think it was the Melody Maker and the rhythm guitar simulator. So there might be a few tracks, I think from 70 to 76, where a couple of Motown tracks will feature these. But but again, they were one-off instruments. They were never mass-produced, which is amazing, you know? But again, it feeds into his paranoia. It's very sad. And Moog says it himself in an interview years later that, you know, he was an unbelievable composer and inventor, but his paranoia held him back, and he never published his designs, and they were just kind of forgotten about, you know. But in fairness to Moog, he does cite him as an influence. And then he kind of just goes into obscurity, you know, in the 80s, and he suffers a series of heart attacks and strokes and dies in 94. Jesus. And I know, like it's quite a grim end, and
it really took a turn in.
Yeah. And he's forgotten as this amazing pioneer of electronic music until a guy called Erwin Chusett. He's a famous music journalist and kind of sees himself as a music historian. Actually, one of his, there's a brilliant quote from Erwin in particular, just about what he kind of did in the 90s and 2000s with maybe one of the less heralded composers. He's like, he takes compositions and music from the scrap heap and puts them into the limelight, you know, and gives them the place they deserve in history. And that's kind of what happened to Raymond Scott in the late 90s, 2000s. You know, like he was brought back from this kind of mad obscurity and into this is your place in electronic music history, you know. But I just thought it was interesting that Moog goes a lot to him, and then like bands later on, like they owe a lot. But you know, there you go. That's the crazy life of Raymond Scott.
I have a really good connection for Raymond Scott.
Excellent.
Which is what I wanted to talk about, because obviously he's known for his cartoons.
Yes.
And one of the ways he was brought back out of obscurity was, as you said, quoted in Ren and Stimpy a lot.
That's right, yeah.
And obviously there's two huge figures in terms of cartoon composing, one being Danny Elfman and the other being Mark Motherbrow and his brother Jim, who did the music for the Rugrats. And of course they're the brothers who were in Devo, and they did the soundtrack for Neil Young's Human Highway, and were very much so innovators of the new wave electronic music crossing over with punk music and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But Mark Motherbrow bought Scott's only non-functioning electronium.
That's right.
With the intention of like possibly bringing it back to life or something like that. But basically the electronium was like an early proto synthesizer that was the size of, you know, a mixing desk, big, huge, you know, 60s style computer sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to connect cartoons there, that's pretty cool. Like the guy who did Rugrats.
Raymond Scott. It's mad, isn't it? It's class. Like, but that's it. It's just amazing how, like, I think he was quite frustrated, you know, like in his later life that he was referenced so much with cartoons and that, Scott, you know. That, like, you know, he's like, I had a whole other side, lads. You know, I was a pioneer of electronic music, you know.
In fairness, though, Moog just has a better name for inventing something. Like, the Scott synthesizer doesn't have a good ring to it.
No.
I found a lot of similarities there with what you were saying about Scott and Joe Meek.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that they were just pioneering things out of not trying to pioneer things, just to make something sound different, and because of their circumstance, just be able to do things themselves. And then obviously through their paranoia, making them not rich and famous from it. Like Joe Meek with, you know, spring reverbs and different styles of recording. We spoke about them before. Obviously, you know, the recording in separate rooms and just using technology out of convenience to create this madness that was in their head.
Okay, lads.
Conasata to Macara, Michael O'Sullivan here from Falch, Ireland with my little friend Larry. Say hello, Larry.
Yahoo!
Go on, Larry, you little bollocks here. Now, us at Falch Ireland know that many of you across the water were hoping to travel to the Emerald Isle to spend St. Patrick's Day here with us. But due to the ongoing pandemic, that isn't possible this year. But fear not, we will be providing the virtual Irish pub experience through our website for only €138 a ticket. We'll send you a slab of Guinness and a link to our virtual pub experience, complete with a roaring fire, Q-Loggers crack and a live chat with real Irish people on it. Tell them what else they can look forward to, Larry.
Oh, top of the morning to you and big gotta. Well, once we send you the cans, we can get onto the group chat, and when you have the cans, you'll scull the cans, and by God, then you'll be snorting cocaine off the cistern, and you'll be shifting people and shitting yourself all over the floor, and then it'll be like a real night out in Ireland. I tell you this, and I tell you this for nothing. You'll be fucking puking all over the place and fighting people and getting the head box off you outside the closest chipper, and you'll be shitting yourself and hoping to God you don't wake up in the morning with the fear of Christ put into you.
Jesus, Larry, would you settle down?
Happy St. Paddy's Day, you pack of gums. Yee-hoo! Go out and enjoy yourself. Yee-hoo!
Well, there you have it, straight from the leprechaun's mouth himself. The authentic Paddy's Day experience, brought to you by Falch Ireland. That's it now, only €138 through our website for the ticket. We know you can afford it now, go on out and buy it, you fucking Yankee pricks.
Do you want to hear a kind of obscure fact, lads?
Always.
Absolutely.
So, I was thinking about this earlier in the week. Basically, to link it back into Daft Punk, everyone knows their album "Human After All" is the one that is a departure kind of from what they had done previously, and it features basically 2 guitars, 2 drum machines, and a vocoder, and everything is going through the vocoder basically. Well, I wanted to go back and see when was the first time a computer was used to make a vocalized sound like that, like the vocoder. And it brought me to Bell Labs in 1961, where they used the IBM computer, mainframe computer. It's the earliest known recording of a computer synthesized voice singing a song. Do you know what the song is?
Is it something to do with a movie?
It is something to do with a movie. Very good, Frank.
It's not Daisy, no.
It is. It's Daisy
Brilliant.
Bell. It's the song Daisy Bell, also known as A Bicycle Built for Two.
Yeah.
So in Stanley Kubrick's
Yeah,
Space
yeah,
Odyssey 2001,
Yes.
when the HAL...
delighted.
well, that was his callback to Bell Labs, because this is obviously set far in the future, and the HAL computer is starting to now deconstruct and revert back, and it just starts singing that song. That was Kubrick's way of showing that it's gone right back to a very basic computer now, you know what I mean?
Daisy,
And it also, in that context, it's so creepy. It's my favorite part in the movie.
It's flawless film, flawless.
It really does start getting really creepy. But yeah, that was the earliest synthesized computered voice. It's the first song that was ever sang by a computer.
2 vocations that are fairly solid in the next few years anyway from AI are comedy and music. Like we are needed. Computers can't predict our imaginations and our emotions, so we're fairly sorted. That's something that Edgar Varus predicted for the future, was an instrument that would just play from our thoughts, and we still haven't figured that one out. So he was fucking way ahead of things.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Leave it to Elon Musk. He'll have something like that for us.
He's busy sorting out traffic.
Basic.
It's time to play a fucking game. Yes, it is a fucking game, and this fucking game is cool. 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 Game is cool.
Give that man a can of Coke.
Ian, we've mentioned this before, and all our Drogheda listeners are going to love this. The name of my game is Give That Person a Can of Coke.
Fantastic.
So
Oh, that's brilliant.
it's
Frank.
electronic related. I'll let Ian go first because he's the Droghedonian. Droghedonian?
Yeah, or Droghedian, yeah.
Droghedian. So I'm going to give you 5 names and you just have to quickly say, give that man or woman a can of Coke, or no, they don't get a can of Coke. Don't give them a can of Coke. Let them go thirsty. That'll be it. Let them go thirsty. So, are you ready, Ian?
Oh, God, yes, absolutely.
Here we go. Give that person a can of Coke. Moby.
Give that man a can of Coke.
Yeah? Nice.
Yeah.
Wendy Carlos.
Oh, give her a fucking 2-liter bottle of Coke.
Vanilla Coke.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know Wendy Carlos, she did the soundtrack to The Shining and Tron, and was an absolute pioneer of electronic composition. Aphex Twin.
You know, I've actually, you know, completely a genuine Ailva actually got me into Aphex Twin a few months back. So yeah, I'd give them all a can of Coke. Yeah.
I've got 2 more for you.
Jeez, these are all getting Cokes.
There's actually a 6-pack of Coke going on here. Clara Rockmore.
You know, I'm sorry, I don't know this person, so I'll be reserved and let them go thirsty.
So, do you want me to explain, and then you'll decide?
Oh God, right. Oh, I had that option.
So I wasn't sure if you'd know who Clara Rockmore was, because I did a bit of digging on this one. So Clara Rockmore.
I'll leave the Coke on the shelf for the moment.
Yeah, have it ready there in the fridge. Clara Rockmore was a Lithuanian violin virtuoso who moved to New York in the 1940s, I think it was. But she became really, really good friends with Leon Theremin and actually helped him to develop what would become his theremin. And she became just an absolute virtuoso, gave up the violin and just dedicated her life to playing the theremin. And it wasn't actually until 1977 that she actually recorded a full album called The Art of the Theremin, which was produced and recorded and engineered by Robert Moog.
Oh, well, here, yeah, go home with the crate. Yeah, cans of Coke all around.
So that was quite highbrow, so I'll hit you with a lowbrow one here for your last one. Scooter.
Scooter.
Yeah.
Fucking thirsty as piss off. Go on, out. Get out.
Brilliant. So that's 4 cans of Coke and 1 fuck off. Fuck
go
off.
On. Go down the fucking Denore Road there, you know. Yeah.
Okay, Shane, are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Norman Cook, aka Fatboy Slim.
Yeah, I'd give that man a Coke.
I think he deserves a Coke too. Brian Eno.
Yeah, give that man a Coke as well.
Grimes.
Oh, she can definitely have a can of Coke. Actually, a pint glass with loads of ice.
Oh.
What? Even nowadays?
Her music, you can just... What is it again? Can you remove the artist from the art?
I don't know. I think, in my opinion, she made an album and a half of decent music.
Well, then you don't give her a can of Coke, Frank. You can give her a glass of water if you want.
Art angels, really. Art angels. Okay, I'll let you give her a pint of crushed ice and Coke.
Yeah.
Calvin Harris.
Yeah, give that man a can of Coke.
And finally, to end on a nice one, just like I did for Ian, Mark McCabe.
I don't know who that is.
What? Maniac 2000.
Oh, Jesus.
The godfather, the fucking daddy of electronic music.
Yeah, definitely. That guy gets a lifetime supply of Coke.
Give him the factory.
Yeah, he can just own Coke now.
Yeah, Funky, yeah.
Yeah.
He basically is like the fucking be all end all of Irish electronica there, like.
Yeah. Mark McCabe.
But anyway, Shane was lashing out the cans of Coke. So there you have it. Get that person a can of Coke. I might keep it, I might not. I'll see what mood I'm in. But there you go. Thanks, Drogheda.
Great. Brilliant.
Do you want to play my game?
Absolutely. Does it involve cans of Coke?
No. So we can get Michael Sheridan a can of Coke for this. He came up with this game, and
Who?
he's been Michael Sheridan. You won't know him, Frank.
Never heard of him. No.
But he's mates with Brian. You know Brian?
I know
Ah,
Brian.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Great
He knows Brian. But this is a game that Mick plays with us in our college group chat, and he basically will send in a comment from a music video, and we have to guess what music video it's from. So I have a few comments here. I'm just going to read
It's
them off
YouTube,
to you.
yes.
YouTube comments, yeah.
The best.
So the name of the game is Whose Comment Is It Anyway? I suppose I won't be throwing them to either like one or the other. Both of you can feel free to jump in if you think you know the answer, okay? And if you're struggling, I'll give hints.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one. This is a perfect song for a slow motion walk scene in a movie.
These are all electronic based.
All electronic based ones this week, yeah.
Perfect scene or perfect song?
This is a perfect song for a slow motion walk scene in a movie.
I'm gonna need a hint.
They're French.
Oh, it has to be
I'll give
Air.
you. Oh yeah, you're on to a winner here.
Sexy
Can
Boy.
you get absolute? I didn't think you'd get it. Sexy Boy by Air. Yeah, that was brilliant. I actually genuinely didn't think you'd narrow that down. One of the other comments underneath that, which I just wrote because they were funny. I didn't think I'd use these, but I sing this song to my cat, and
Right.
I lost my virginity to this song. What I love about this is when I read them, I try to get into the mind of who decided that's the comment they wanted to leave, On to my next one. So this one, I'm doing an element of I'll have to replace the band name with blank because the name was mentioned in the comment. You can't write a song with just 3 words. Blank, hold my beer. So there's a pretty good hint there is what the song is.
Oh, 3 words. Daft Punk.
Okay, so what's the song, Ian?
But 3 words.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
'cause
but
that's
that's
Around the world.
Around the World.
Yes.
because I was thinking of a harder, fitter, but
Yeah,
but no,
yeah,
it's
that's
not.
loads of words.
Yeah,
That's
but the two of us got it. We got it over the line, Frank.
yeah, there was a good
Teamwork.
team effort there. I really like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Daft Punk Around the World. You can't write a song with just 3 words. Daft Punk, hold my beer. This is a good one. I like this one now. Listening to this on my Sony Walkman, riding my bike on a highway, bliss, nostalgia.
Window liquor.
No. I'll give hints. I'll say that we're in the UK now. This one had a very good music video.
Praise you.
Close.
Oh, is it Fatboy Slim?
Yes.
Rockefeller Shank.
No.
Weapon of Choice.
No. But great video.
Great video. Shit.
Right here. Right now.
Yeah, exactly, Ian. Exactly.
Yes.
Right
Which
here,
ones?
right now by
Yes.
Fatboy Slim. I was going to say the Evolution as a hint, but yeah.
I had that.
Um,
That was running through my head, and I was like, I just could not get the song.
Yeah.
Right
Listening.
here.
Yeah, but I liked that comment. Listening to this on my Sony Walkman, riding my bike on a highway, bliss, nostalgia.
Riding a bike on a highway.
That's really
know, yeah.
dangerous with headphones.
yeah. And on a highway, are bikes allowed?
I don't know.
Maybe it's a motorbike.
Drinking cranberry juice.
Yeah, it could be a motorbike. So the last one, we'll do our last one. This is in reference to the video. This comment. So this baby would be about 20 odd years old now. Wonder what she's doing now.
Is that referring to the person in the video or the person making the song?
The person in the video.
Okay.
It's a
So
massive attack.
Ian, you're
Teardrop.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
Massive Attack Teardrop. That was brilliant. Fair play to you.
That was
Really good team effort on all of them. One just teeing it up and the other one knocking it down.
I did
Fair
loads
play
on
to
that
them.
last one. Yeah, I completely just jumped in and stole the answer.
Fucking-
But Chad, so that's my game. that I stole from some lad. Whose comment is it anyway? Did you enjoy yourselves?
Very
Thanks,
good. I enjoyed that.
I did enjoy that. Yeah, that was
So I might bring that back for future installments. We never know.
That was very good. Very good. And good teamwork, Frank.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm happy with that. High five, Ian. Virtual high five.
Fran McGovern here of McGovern's Country House Kitchen Garden. All you city slickers out there, fed up of the four walls closing in on you in your bedsit, flat or apartment, barely see the light of day with working from home, or the various restrictions in general during this pandemic, then fear not, we have a solution for you. For the first time now, McGovern's Country House Kitchen Garden is offering you to rent your own slice of rural Ireland through our Rent a Kitchen Garden Square scheme. Here, for only €50 a month, you can rent a 2 metre squared patch of your own vegetables, flowers, whatever you'd like, and we'll send you updates of how your growth is getting on via high quality photos or even a live stream for an extra €20. That's Fran McGovern here of McGovern's Country House Kitchen Garden Rent-a-Plot scheme. A breath of fresh air.
And welcome back. Right, lads, what recommendations have you got to finish us off this fine week? Shane, go first.
So, in terms of electronic music, my recommendation for anyone who hasn't gotten into the genre would be the first kind of electronic album I ever was given was Moon Safari by Air. It is a lot more laid back, down tempo electronic music.
Yeah, atmospheric.
More ambient, but there's a lot of really good songs on it. Like mentioned before, Sexy Boy is on it. La Femme d'Argent, All I Need. They're all songs that you'd recognize. But yeah, that was my first kind of entrance into this world of trip hop and electronic music, and mostly instrumental music. That's a good place to start. And then in terms of just normal recommendations, our friends from Cork, Elbe, have a new single out. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's a really well-crafted piece of music that is really, really nicely recorded, but it's really catchy as well. So that is Only You by Elbe. So definitely check that out. And then my last recommendation is anyone that knows me knows my dad is from New Zealand, and I grew up listening to Crowded House. It's easily the band that I've listened to the most, like from when I was very small. And they have a new single out at the moment called To the Island. Some really interesting instrumentation going on in it, really nice sounds. I just love how the chorus there's no pre-chorus, so it just kind of emerges out of the verse and brings you into the chorus. That's all of my recommendations to go listen to.
Ian?
Yep. So my recommends this week. So for our history of electronic music, it wouldn't be right if I didn't recommend the works of Raymond Scott. So there's two albums in particular. I suppose when he was actually alive, he didn't really release all that much material as an album per se, but he did release one. Now, it was actually a collection of 3 volumes, but you could purchase it as one in 1963, and it was called Soothing Sounds for Baby. It was completely instrumental and completely electronic, so it was composed on his Clavivox, and he had a few other instruments on it and get the electronium on it as well. It's amazing, and it's actually, the 3 volumes are done in so volume 1 is newborn to, I think it's 3 months old, and then volume 2 is, I think goes up to, is it like a 2-year-old or 18 months, but it's modern day critics now looking back, I'd say it was definitely the birth of the kind of ambient atmospheric electronic genre, which is very cool. And then his second one that I'd recommend was released posthumously in 2000, and it's called Manhattan Research Incorporated, or Inc., named after his electronic music company. And basically it's a phenomenal collection from 1953 to 1969, where it's just jam-packed of all his various jingles and bits he did for the adverts. So, his collaboration there with Jim Henson, IBM's, Bendix Corporation, like it's phenomenal body of work. Absolutely amazing. Those two albums from Raymond Scott. And my final recommend is just away from the electronic music stuff. It's Neil Young's The Times. This was released in September 2020, but it was recently issued on vinyl there at the end of February. And it's actually part of, or it's taken from his fireside sessions that he filmed, or I should say Daryl Hannah filmed throughout the various lockdowns in 2020. And it's highly themed towards the election. So you have likes of renditions of Alabama, Ohio, Southern Man, campaigner as well, and he also covers Times They Are Changing, but it's real nice. Actually recorded through his iPad, believe it or not. And this is Neil Young, who was, a couple of years back, absolutely puritanical with his analog and high fidelity, but here he's doing a quite rough and ready recording. Interestingly, on the back of the vinyl, it tells you the source, and it says digital at, isn't it 192? You know that quality on your lads. Yeah. I don't need to tell you about that. Anyway, yeah, that's my recommends. There you go.
Very good. I'm gonna stick with the theme of electronica, and also because it was very recently International Women's Day, I'm gonna pick 2 international women. 2 electronic artists or DJs or whatever you want to call them that I've been fascinated with maybe for the last 3-4 years have been Nina Kravitz, who is a Russian DJ, electronic artist, unbelievably good techno. She has done remixes with the likes of Saint Vincent. Her last album, she took vocal tracks from that and put different beats and just remixed the crap out of it to make completely different songs. Her song Ghetto Kravitz, the original mix of that is an absolute belter that has 8 million views or something like that. And she had a song in the new Grand Theft Auto that came out. The other artist I would recommend would be Amelie Lenz, who is a Belgian producer, DJ, electronic artist. Once again, just straight up techno. A good entrance song to Amelie Lenz would be Follow. Once again, it's got millions of views and is just hypnotic and just really, really good, repetitive, heavy techno electronica. What I like about electronic artists is they never really have these big hits. If you go onto their Spotify and stuff like that, it'll always be a different collection of remixes and stuff that they're collaborating on, and they don't really have albums, and they're just constantly doing things. And during the lockdown, it's they were just constantly doing live sets from home or from different warehouses and releasing different songs. They're really busy musicians and artists, which is what I like about it, is they're constantly collaborating and doing stuff. They haven't really let this whole, because obviously they don't have to physically be in a room with people when they make their music, but yeah, they're just constantly working and releasing stuff every other week. But yeah, Amelie Lenz and Nina Kravitz are just addictive electronic music. But yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
Nice.
Are we wrapping up our robotic chapter?
Beep, bop, beep, bop, boop.
We never mentioned I'm Blue by Eiffel 65. That's probably the pinnacle of electronic music there.
That goes without saying, Frank.
Honorable mention.
Yeah. We'll include that in our Spotify companion for the podcast of songs. That'll be the first track.
Cool. This has been a long one, so I think we're good to leave it there. I hope you're more appreciative of electronic music. If you didn't like electronic music going into this and you still don't like it, then this has probably been absolute hell. Go back and listen to Woody Guthrie or whoever the hell you're into. Cool. See you next time, guys.
Happy birthday, Polly.